Good morning. Didn't know how these needed to be, so there's some papers here I need to flip, and I didn't want to fumble because I'm sure I will. Hey, let's do that again. Good morning. Okay, I like it. Much better. So at the beginning of Lent, I reached into that ribbon basket that we had, and my intention was to grab a ribbon. I ended up coming up with two. One was blue, one was pink. So naturally, I assumed that I would take the blue one, give the pink one to Elizabeth. So before I read mine, I wanted us to read our ribbons together. For those of you that are new here, A, welcome. B, if you got any questions, please feel free to grab me, grab someone from the congregation, grab one of the ushers at the end of the service. We've all been new at one point. We know how it feels. So let us know if you have any questions. We had a ribbon basket during Lent. Anyway, so I head down to Brown Hall, which is our recreational area facility, to find my wife, Elizabeth, who, as some of you may know, was probably chasing the kids around. So I found her, gave her her pink ribbon, and I took my blue one and read what was on it. And written on that ribbon was Psalm 130 and the word waiting. So call it providence or coincidence, whatever you will, but the more I read it, the more it resonated with me. So you guys are going to get a big dose of Psalm 130 today because I have it written down twice in this sermon. I may paraphrase a little bit. So, out of the depths I cry to you, Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. If you, Lord, kept a record of sins, Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, so that we can, with reverence, serve you. I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. He himself will redeem Israel from all their sins. So back when I was 16, I was walking hurriedly down the beach one afternoon with a surfboard under my arm. Well, actually, I wasn't walking. I was sprinting because there was good waves that day, and I had been waiting all week long for those waves to come in, watching the forecast, watching the weather reports, the buoys, doing everything I can, hoping that we were going to finally have some good waves. So I couldn't sit still in class. I was just very, very eager. It was hard to be patient because I was excited. By the time I finally got out of school, got in my car, and drove to the beach, I probably would have gotten a speeding ticket. I was trying to get there so fast. Thankfully, no police spotted me. Get to the beach, strap on my leash, which is the little thing that goes around your ankle in case you lose your board, you can pull it back. Strap it on, get on the board, start paddling out. It's pretty rough when the waves are big, so you got to paddle pretty hard. There's a thing you can do called a duck dive where you push yourself and your surfboard under the whitewash as it's coming so it doesn't throw you all around. So paddled hard, do a bunch of duck dives, really, really trying to get out there. And finally, I get out into the lineup, and you know what? The waves disappeared. So there I sat, waiting. Lamentations chapter 3, verse 25 says, "The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him." Waiting is such a difficult thing. It's difficult for all of us to do, especially when you're young and excited. So while I sat waiting in the lineup, I began to pray. I always prayed when I was floating around there, bobbing in the ocean. It seems like a good time to connect with God. You're nice and vulnerable. You don't know what's coming. So I prayed for my family and my future, and the well-being of myself and my loved ones. So just as my prayer was concluding, a large set wave appeared on the horizon. It was go time. So I got in a position, started paddling frantically, as hard as I can to catch that wave. You know what? I got it. So I got real excited, started to turn at the top of the wave and do a big turn, trying to be all cool, and I missed. So I fell back really hard, got pounded by the wave underwater. And when the waves were real big, there's some pretty strong undertow. And I was tossed around, didn't know which way was up, trying to fight to get a breath. And I learned a long time ago, when I was early on in my surfing years, that if you try to fight the current, try to fight the waves, you're going to lose. So the only thing you can do is just sit there underwater and wait. And wait for that undertow to release you so you can surface. But I tell you what, when you're underwater, not able to breathe, being held down, it feels like an eternity. So I sat there underwater, just waiting to catch my breath, waiting for an opportunity to surface. And tell you what, I prayed for a whale to come by and swallow me like Jonah. I mean, at least I could breathe in the belly of that whale. But it didn't happen. I was waiting. My life depended on it. Isaiah 40:30-31 says, "Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they wait. For Jehovah shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." So finally, it was as if it just went calm. I floated up the surface, grabbed my board, gasped for air. And it reminded me of that passage in Matthew where Jesus is sleeping on the back of the boat and a storm comes up. And all of his disciples start to panic. And Jesus is still just sleeping on the back of the boat. So they finally wake him up and they ask him, "Lord, do you care if we would perish?" And he just kind of chuckled. And he rebuked the waves and the wind, and he told the ocean, "Peace, and be still." And it happened. So then he turned to his disciples and he said, "Why were you so afraid? How is it that you have no faith?" So it's hard to wait for the Lord in any moment of life, and it's really, really hard and even harder to wait in times of tribulation. We think that we can control the storm or control the waves, but we must wait for God to deliver us from such trials. And only God knows when it's time for the storm to be calmed in our lives. So I decided after this breathtaking experience to paddle in. I was just going to sit on the beach and wait until I got my nerve back. So I sat there just kind of panting in the sand. I was looking out over God's beautiful, powerful, and sometimes merciless ocean. And I waited. The word wait is mentioned 139 times in the Bible. Makes me feel like there's some significance on that word, wait. How much of our lives are spent waiting? Waiting at a stoplight, waiting in line, waiting for our spouse or our children or our loved ones to complete a task, get in the car. Sometimes we wait for a phone call. We hope that on the other end of that line there's some good news, and sometimes there's not. But the Bible tells us that we are not alone in our waiting. Hebrews 6:13-15 says, "When God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, he swore by himself, saying, 'I will surely bless you and give you many descendants.' And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised." David waited 15 years to be king. Moses waited 40 years to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And after he fled Egypt, he wasn't called back to lead his people until he was in his 80s. Rebekah waited 20 years to give birth to Jacob and Esau. So there's a popular verse from John, you might be familiar with it. It says, "And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son." What it doesn't say in that passage is, "I will do whatever you ask right now." So none of us know God's timing. But we know sometimes it seems so long before our prayers are answered or we get what we need from God. I waited 28 years to meet Elizabeth. And get this, our families had been friends our entire lives. But God didn't allow us to meet until the timing was right. I had to wait. Actually, if I'd met her younger, she probably wouldn't have given me the time of day. So I wasn't necessarily ready for marriage when I was in my younger years. So we'll just leave it at that. So Romans 8:25 tells us, "But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience." So that makes me think about that as I've been working with the other members of our PNC. I can't help but feeling that our church must embrace this command to wait with patience. It's hard. My father used to always make a joke, and he would say, "Give me patience and give it to me now." Yeah, waiting is so hard. Think back on your childhood and remember when the month of December rolled around. It's like December 1st hit, and everything felt like it was going to be forever until Christmas finally came. Or better yet, did you ever go on a long road trip with your family somewhere special like Disney or a cool family vacation spot? Oh, we've all heard it. Are we there yet? So this period of waiting we're going through as a congregation, it can seem like it's feeling to drag on because we actually have that same feeling that we had when we were children. Knowing that at the end of this waiting or at the end of this long journey that we're going on, there's something magical at the end. So what does God want us to do while we wait? For starters, we can pray. Depending on what we wait for, we can find some prayer direction in the scriptures. If you're afraid, need strength through your waiting, pray to God assuredly, because Isaiah 41:10 states, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." If you need help waiting patiently, try scheduling 15 minutes a day to prayerfully meditate. Psalm 62:5 says, "Rest in God alone, O my soul, for my hope comes from him. Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from him. Let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in him. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. Rest in God alone, O my soul, for my hope comes from him." So I read an interesting book a few years ago. It was more of a business book, but it had a lot of religious connotation in it. It was called Think, Learn, Succeed. And it's by an author named Dr. Caroline Leaf. So Dr. Leaf is a Christian cognitive neuroscientist. Let's say that 5 times fast. Christian cognitive neuroscientist, Christian cognitive neuroscientist, Christian cognitive... I think I could do it. Anyways, so this book, she goes into great detail about how thoughtful prayer, daily meditative prayer, can have like some tremendous impacts on your brain. So there was some studies that were done that after it was like 6 months of dedicated 15-minute prayer and meditation, that people's brain scans actually looked different on an MRI. Some powerful stuff. So while you're waiting for God, God is waiting for us. All the time, with an open ear to hear us, an open eye to see us, and open arms to embrace us. What else can we do while we're waiting for God? Serve. So as I was working on this, I thought about that word serve, and it reminded me of back when I was younger, I waited tables. Some of you may have. Could be good, could be bad experiences. That's your decision to make. So anyways, a server is also known as a waiter. So the term in Greek for server is servitros. The term in Hebrew to serve is lasharat. I don't know where I was going with that, but I thought it was interesting. You guys thought I was going to say something really profound there. That's all I got. But anyways, so a waiter is a server, right? So one who waits is also one who serves. So just some food for thought. So in that context, if we talk about ourselves as waiters, aren't we also speaking about ourselves as servers? Some of you may be familiar with the writer Anne Voskamp. And there was a quote that she said, "When you are waiting, do what waiters do. Serve." So if any of you have ever worked in a restaurant before, I'm sure you got all kinds of memories, some good, some bad. But thankfully, I've had some crazy experiences. And what I was really excited about when writing this is that waiting on God, waiting for God, is nothing like waiting tables. I had a customer return a steak one time that was requested as medium rare, and they returned it and said, "Well, this steak is more like medium rare, so I need you to take it back to the kitchen because it needs to be medium rare." I'm just really glad that that's not how we wait on God, right? Well, serving God is doing what is pleasing to Him. And helping others is one of the greatest ways we can serve our Lord. When one of the teachers of the laws asked Jesus, "What is the greatest commandment?" in Mark, he tells us this: "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. And he says that there are no commandments greater than these. So if we follow these, it's pretty easy to serve. Lastly, what can we do while we're waiting? We can trust. We've all heard the saying, "Let go and let God." That's not easy. Waiting on the Lord isn't like waiting for the light to turn green. It's trusting that God is in control. But we need to serve His will until it's time to meet Him. Since I wrote this, I have found myself waiting a lot. Waiting on some really good things, waiting on some really bad things, and waiting approximately 3,826 times for my kids to put on their shoes and get in the car. But we need to trust that God is present in our waiting and trust that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So, for the sake of time and redundancy on Psalm 130, this is where I was going to say it again, but we'll just get back to number 6. And it says, "I wait for the Lord, more than watchmen wait for the morning." And then it is repeated, "More than watchmen wait for the morning." So the fact that that phrase is repeated twice had me thinking, why? So I looked into what a watchman's duty was back when this was possibly written. And the watchman's job was to keep a lookout at night over the city walls and make sure that there was no one attacking in the middle of the night and sound alert if there were, or make sure that there wasn't anything bad happening at night while everyone else could rest and sleep. This has had to be a pretty stressful job, being a watchman, being the one up alone with all of that responsibility, waiting and hoping that nothing bad happens while you're watching. And the only thing that can end the watchman's job is the sunrise. We can't control when the sun comes up. Only God can. So only God is in control of when our waiting is over. And only God can bring the peace of the sunrise. And when the sun comes up, we can stop waiting, know that God's with us, and we're safe. So we wait for the Lord, and we can rest assured that He will come to us, and when He does, we will have peace. So please take a moment to reflect on this. Spend some time with your God, our God. Let Him know that we're waiting. Amen.